A 16-year-old boy was heading home after spending time with his friends. His entire family, his father, stepmother, and two young sisters whom he adored, were waiting for him. But when Mark entered the house, he immediately sensed that something terrible had happened. His whole family, including the two young girls, had been brutally murdered. The house was filled with blood. This incident would go down as one of the most gruesome crimes in Torb's history. Dedra Lynn Mims was born on July 23, 1967, to Kendall and Elizabeth Mims. She had two sisters, an older one, Kendra, and a younger one, Tedra. The town, located halfway between Montgomery and Birmingham, was ideal for business and manufacturing and was famous for its annual peach harvest. While still in high school, Dedra met her first love, Tommy Lee Hunt. Both came from large families, sharing a common dream of starting a family together. After finishing school, Tommy proposed to Dedra. They married, moved into their own home in Thorsby, and welcomed their first daughter, Chelsea Marie Hunt. 6 months later, they had another daughter, Chalisa Nicole Hunt. Dedra was a devoted mother, patient, sensitive, and cheerful. She took great pride in her role as a parent, dressing her daughters in matching outfits, so they looked like twins with curly hair and small, button noses. The only noticeable differences between the girls were their slight age gap and hair color. Chelsea was dark-haired, while Chalisa was fair-haired. Despite their similarities, their personalities differed. Chelsea was a tomboy who played softball and spoke her mind freely, while Chalisa was a graceful little princess who loved dolls and pretty dresses. Every year, the girls would dress up for Halloween and celebrate family holidays. In spring, they'd help their aunt plant flowers, which they'd later gather to give to their mother on Mother's Day. The sisters loved each other, although they had occasional disputes. These quarrels never lasted long. By the end of the day, they'd apologize and run around the house together, giggling. In 1994, when Chelsea was 5 and Chalisa 3.5, Tommy and Dedra separated. Both parents were committed to minimizing the impact of the divorce on their daughters. Tommy remained in Thorsby with the girls, ensuring they didn't have to change schools. Dedra spent weekends with her daughters while Tommy took on the day-to-day responsibilities, learning to cook, clean, and even braid hair. Though separated, Dedra and Tommy maintained a friendly relationship for the sake of their daughters. Dedra eventually found love again with Randy Duke, a man nearly 10 years her senior. Randy, who was born in Chicago but raised in Alabama, was a plumber and an employee of the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. He had a son, Mark Anthony Duke, from a previous marriage, who came to live with him at age 14. Randy bought a beautiful home in Pelham to support his family. Though he initially struggled with fatherhood, he dedicated himself to being a better father when Dedra, Chelsea, and Chalisa entered his life. In 1997, the family prepared for a wedding. Randy proposed to Dedra, and they planned a celebration. Mark, now 16, was in high school, Chelsea was nearly 8, and Chalisa had recently turned 6. Mark became a beloved older brother to the girls, whom he adored. His friends claimed he'd do anything for Chelsea and Chalisa. During winter break, the girls spent a memorable vacation with their father Tommy and his sister Tara. They ate cupcakes for breakfast, jumped on beds, stayed up late, and watched movies, a magical time they had no idea would be their last holiday together. On March 21, 1997, Chalisa participated in her first beauty pageant. Dressed like an angel in white, she won second place and was eager to enter another contest. That evening, Dedra helped her daughters pack for the weekend at Randy's. They hugged Tommy goodbye, and Dedra promised to return them by Sunday evening. However, things did not go as planned. At 8:40 p.m., on March 23, 1997, a frantic male voice called 911, reporting that his entire family had been killed. It was Mark Duke, the stepson. The rapid response team arrived and found Mark outside, sending him to a juvenile center for his safety until the investigation was underway. Inside, the officers found a horrific scene. Blood was everywhere, and the bodies lay in various rooms of the house. Randy Duke lay face down near the fireplace, with multiple stab wounds. A broken kitchen knife was nearby, a testament to the brutality of the attack. Dedra was found in a state of disarray, attempting to shield her daughters before her life was tragically taken. Chelsea and Chalisa, innocent and beloved children, had also suffered horrific ends. As the investigation continued, detectives interviewed family members, friends, and neighbors, all of whom were devastated by the brutal crime. Tommy Hunt, Dedra's ex-husband, was in shock upon learning of the tragedy, grappling with the loss of his 2 daughters and former wife. Suspicion gradually turned toward Mark Duke and his friends, a group of troubled teens who dabbled in petty mischief. Investigators learned from Mark's 14-year-old girlfriend, Sarah, that he had confessed the crime to her. She bravely wore a wire to help capture his confession, leading detectives to unravel the chilling details. In Mark's confession, he revealed deep-seated anger towards his father and stepmother. This resentment, fueled by years of feeling neglected and mistreated, culminated in his decision to murder them. On the night of the crime, he and his friend Brandon entered the house with firearms, ruthlessly murdering Randy, Dedra, Chelsea, and Kalisa in cold blood. Mark spared no one, even the little girls who had adored him. The evidence was undeniable. The knife, marked with traces of blood, and the friend's confession cemented Mark's guilt. Despite their efforts to plead innocence, Mark Duke and Brandon Samra were convicted and sentenced to death. However, a subsequent Supreme Court ruling prevented Mark's execution due to his age at the time of the crime. Instead, he faced life imprisonment without parole. Brandon Samra, who was 19, was executed in 2019 by lethal injection. The tragedy left a lasting impact on the community. Thorsby School built a gym in memory of Chelsea and Chalisa, a place where children could laugh, play, and remember the innocence lost in the brutal slayings. The aftermath of this horrific crime sent shockwaves through the town of Pelham and beyond. People struggled to comprehend how someone so young could harbor such malice toward their own family. Friends, neighbors, and schoolmates of Chelsea and Chalisa were particularly affected, with the school district arranging counseling sessions for students who needed support in processing the loss of their friends. The media coverage added pressure on law enforcement, who worked tirelessly to piece together the events of that fateful night. Autopsy results showed the victims had not only suffered physical wounds but also endured immense terror in their final moments. These details haunted the first responders and detectives involved in the case for years, as the trauma of witnessing the crime scene stayed with them. As detectives delved into Randy Duke's professional background, they considered the possibility that his work with the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board might have led to retribution. As an undercover agent working against illegal drug distribution, Randy had crossed paths with numerous criminals, but a thorough review of his activities ruled out this theory. His bank records were in order, and there were no signs of unpaid debts or significant enemies tied to his job. With the investigation running out of leads, public suspicion began to shift towards Mark Duke, the family's sole survivor. His troubled history, marked by behavioral issues and poor academic performance, had raised concerns among friends and neighbors. Randy had even sent Mark to a boot camp for troubled teens, hoping it would help him find stability. However, this only seemed to intensify Mark's anger, and his friends noted his increasingly rebellious attitude. Then came a critical breakthrough when Sarah, Mark's girlfriend, revealed more information to investigators. She noticed cuts on Mark's hands, and when she asked him about it, he casually told her details of the crime that only someone present at the scene could have known. Despite initially thinking he was making it up, Sarah's account led detectives to pursue him more aggressively. Investigators confronted Mark with inconsistencies in his story. Although he initially claimed he'd only seen his father's body, he had told the 911 dispatcher that his entire family was dead. Mark explained this by saying he assumed they were all attacked, but detectives saw it as an indication of his deeper involvement. Despite a lack of physical evidence directly tying him to the murders, detectives pressed forward. Sarah's brave cooperation with police was instrumental. She agreed to wear a wire and captured Mark and his friends discussing the details of the murders. This recorded conversation, coupled with corroborating testimonies from his friends, led investigators to unravel the full story of what had transpired. Mark's resentment toward his father had festered for years. He felt his father had abandoned him during childhood and resented the discipline imposed upon him, including being sent to boot camp. A recent disagreement over his father's refusal to let him borrow the car for a party seemed to be the final straw. Mark decided to kill his father, and knowing Dedra, Chelsea, and Chalisa would be at home, he resolved to eliminate any witnesses as well. With the help of his friend Brandon, Mark entered the house armed with guns and knives. Randy tried to calm Mark, hoping to defuse the situation, but his efforts were in vain. Mark and Brandon mercilessly executed each family member, sparing no one, not even the 2 young girls. They then staged the house to resemble a robbery, carving gang symbols into the walls to mislead investigators. Mark hoped someone else would discover the bodies, but when no one did, he was forced to return home and call 911 himself. The crime's gruesome nature led the state prosecutor to seek the death penalty. In the ensuing trials, the full horror of the crime was recounted, leaving the courtroom in tears as details emerged about each victim's final moments. While Mark Duke's sentence was ultimately commuted to life imprisonment without parole due to his age, Brandon Samra faced execution, as he was 19 at the time. For the community of Pelham, the tragedy was a reminder of the darkest potential of human behavior. To honor the memories of Chelsea, Kalisa, Dedra, and Randy, Thorsby School built a gym in their memory. It served as a space for children to play, laugh, and enjoy life, a place where love could triumph over the horrors of that night. This tragic case continues to serve as a poignant reminder of the devastating impact that unresolved anger and violence can have on families and communities. The memory of Chelsea, Chalisa, Dedra, and Randy lives on, a testament to the enduring strength of love, even in the face of unimaginable evil. In the aftermath of the trial, life for the families and friends of the victims was forever altered. Tommy Hunt, Dedra's ex-husband and the father of Chelsea and Chalisa, was shattered by the unimaginable loss of his daughters and the woman he had once loved. In the weeks following the tragedy, he struggled to cope with the profound grief that had overtaken him. Unable to bear the memories tied to the family home in Thorsby, Tommy eventually moved away, hoping to find peace and begin the long process of healing. The families of Dedra, Chelsea, and Chalisa, as well as Randy Duke's relatives, rallied together to support each other through the pain. The community of Pelham also came together, united by the collective grief and shock that such a heinous crime could happen in their quiet town. The construction of the gym in memory of the young girls was a way for the town to commemorate their lives and to provide a positive space for future generations. The case of Mark Duke and Brandon Sommer serves as a stark reminder of the potential for unresolved anger to manifest in devastating ways. Many people in the community were haunted by questions about what had led Mark, a boy so young, to such darkness. Friends and neighbors speculated about what might have changed if someone had intervened earlier in his life, and whether different choices could have prevented this tragic outcome. In time, this case would become a pivotal reference in discussions about juvenile justice and the psychological factors that can drive young individuals to commit violent acts. Legal experts and mental health professionals often cited the case when examining the influence of familial relationships, resentment, and behavioral issues on youth violence. Mark Duke's sentence was eventually commuted from death to life in prison without parole, following the Supreme Court's ruling prohibiting the execution of offenders who were minors at the time of their crimes. This decision fueled further debate about the balance between punishment and rehabilitation for juvenile offenders. Brandon Samra, on the other hand, faced his sentence under the full weight of the law. At 19, he was eligible for the death penalty, and after years of appeals and failed petitions for clemency, he was executed by lethal injection on May 15, 2019. His death brought a bittersweet sense of closure for some of the victims' family members, while others were left reflecting on the sorrow that no sentence could ever fully erase. Today, the community of Pelham continues to remember Chelsea, Chalisa, Dedra, and Randy. Thorsby School's gymnasium stands as a testament to the girls' bright spirits and the love they brought to those around them. Every year, the community honors their memory through a small ceremony where friends, family, and former classmates gather to reflect on the tragedy, share memories, and reaffirm the importance of love and kindness. As painful as it is, the legacy of this tragic story serves as a reminder of the resilience that can emerge from even the darkest of times. Chelsea, Chalisa, Dedra, and Randy's lives, though tragically cut short, continue to inspire others to prioritize compassion, intervene when they see someone struggling, and hold on to the belief that love is stronger than any act of evil. The haunting memories of that night in 1997 will never fully fade, but the community has found ways to honor the lives lost, ensuring that they are remembered for the joy they brought rather than the horror that ended their lives. In closing, this case has left an indelible mark, not only on the families directly involved, but also on everyone who heard about it. It's a story of unimaginable loss and resilience, of a town finding ways to heal and rebuild. Although no amount of justice can undo the harm done, The memory of Chelsea, Chalisa, Dedra, and Randy lives on as a powerful reminder that, ultimately, love and remembrance can triumph over even the most senseless acts of violence. The tragic story of Mark Duke, his family, and the horrific events of that night has left a lasting impact on true crime communities and continues to serve as a cautionary tale about the complexities of familial relationships, unresolved anger, and the potential for violence among troubled youth. In the years following the murders, the case has been analyzed by psychologists, criminologists, and sociologists, each aiming to understand the underlying factors that could have driven a teenager like Mark to commit such heinous acts. Many experts point to a combination of environmental influences, personal trauma, and social isolation that may have fueled Mark's resentment and anger toward his father and family. The case also highlights the role that intervention and support systems could play in identifying and addressing behavioral issues in young people before they escalate into violence. For the people of Pelham and the surrounding communities, the tragedy was a harsh reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of supporting at-risk youth. Over time, local organizations began to put more emphasis on youth outreach programs, mental health support, and early intervention strategies to help prevent similar incidents in the future. These initiatives aim to provide young people with a safe space to express their frustrations, receive guidance, and develop coping mechanisms for life's challenges. Community leaders also advocated for improved family counseling services, understanding that strong, supportive family structures could help reduce the likelihood of anger festering into violence. The story of the Duke family has since been covered in numerous true crime documentaries, podcasts, and articles. Each retelling brings new listeners and viewers into the narrative, generating discussions about the potential warning signs of troubled youth and the responsibilities of families, communities, and society as a whole to address them. This case has particularly resonated with those who have experienced loss or violence within their own families, offering a somber reflection on the devastating impact such incidents leave on the lives of everyone involved. Today, Mark Duke remains in prison, serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The memory of his family, the innocent lives lost in such a senseless act, serves as a reminder of the importance of compassion, forgiveness, and support for those struggling with emotional challenges. The gymnasium built in honor of Chelsea, Chalisa, Dedra, and Randy stands as a place of hope and joy for the children who use it, a lasting tribute to their legacy and a symbol of the resilience of the human spirit. Ultimately, the case of Mark Duke and the Duke family murders has come to embody both the darkest aspects of human nature and the incredible capacity of communities to come together, heal, and honor the lives lost. As long as this story is remembered, the legacy of Dedra, Chelsea, Chalisa, and Randy will live on, serving as a call to action to support troubled youth, strengthen families, and foster love over hatred. Years after the Duke family murders, Pelham and the surrounding communities still feel the weight of that terrible night. Many locals remember exactly where they were when they heard the news, and the story has become ingrained in the town's history, a painful but pivotal reminder of how quickly lives can change. As true crime enthusiasts and professionals continue to discuss the case, many find themselves asking how the warning signs in Mark Duke's life went unnoticed, or if they were addressed, why they were not enough. His behavioral issues, anger, and sense of abandonment were well known to those around him. Some speculate that his sense of isolation may have worsened over time, leading him to view his family, especially his father, as obstacles to his happiness rather than sources of support. In the years following the tragedy, schools in the region placed more emphasis on mental health awareness, creating programs specifically aimed at identifying and supporting troubled youth. Educators, coaches, and counselors were trained to recognize behavioral red flags, not just for immediate disciplinary action, but for deeper emotional and psychological support. Programs in Pelham and nearby areas were developed to provide teens with safe spaces to express their feelings, deal with family issues, and build resilience. The tragedy also sparked conversations at the state level about how to manage cases involving juveniles who commit serious crimes. The Supreme Court's later ruling that banned the death penalty for minors underscored the importance of distinguishing between adolescent and adult behavior in the justice system. While Mark Duke's sentence was commuted to life without parole, the ruling led to reforms across various states, with a greater focus on rehabilitation and psychological care for minors involved in violent crimes. For the Hunt and Duke families, the years that followed were filled with grief and a search for closure that often felt out of reach. Tommy Hunt, Chelsea and Chalisa's father, struggled to come to terms with their loss, haunted by the memories of their last moments together and the unimaginable pain they must have experienced. Support from friends, family, and even strangers helped him slowly rebuild his life, though the void left by his daughters remained. The Hunts and Mims families became advocates for victims' rights, attending events and speaking about the importance of community support for families affected by violent crimes. Over time, they worked to channel their grief into efforts that could potentially protect others, hoping that no family would have to endure the pain they experienced. The annual ceremonies at Thoresby School, in honor of Chelsea and Chalisa, became not only a moment of remembrance but also a call to action to ensure that children and families receive the support they need before it's too late. True crime authors and documentary filmmakers often revisit the Duke family murders, shedding light on the social and psychological factors that can contribute to family violence. Some have explored the impact of Mark Duke's tumultuous upbringing, while others focus on the resilience of the victims' families and the way the community came together to honor their memories. In these retellings, Dedra, Chelsea, Chalisa, and Randy are remembered not for the horrific way their lives were taken, but for the love, joy, and light they brought into the world. Each new examination of the case brings fresh reminders of the lessons learned and the need for continuous compassion and vigilance. The Pelham community, though forever marked by this tragedy, has grown stronger and more united over the years. Local leaders continue to promote initiatives that foster family wellness, mental health support, and youth engagement, reinforcing the community's dedication to nurturing a safer, more compassionate environment. Neighboring towns have followed suit, implementing similar measures in hopes of preventing similar tragedies. In the decades since the murders, the gymnasium in Thoresby stands as a hopeful legacy, a place filled with laughter, teamwork, and joy exactly the way Chelsea and Chalisa would have wanted it. Their memory continues to inspire positive change, a reminder that even the darkest events can lead to brighter futures when communities choose unity and compassion over fear. As long as the story of the Duke family remains in the hearts and minds of those in Pelham and beyond, it will serve as a powerful testament to the strength of love and the resilience of those who choose healing and remembrance over bitterness. Their lives, tragically cut short, have left an enduring legacy that has helped protect countless others, shining a light on the importance of mental health awareness, community support, and the unwavering commitment to prevent senseless violence.